Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Patrick Ray, and I am one of the retirement advisors here with the Retirement Group. And we appreciate, for those of you who are with Chevron, joining us this afternoon. We hope you find some value in spending some time with us today because we've got a lot to cover. And we also have a very important update related to the current interest rate environment. And we're going to talk about how that implies and affects your pension. So before we get started, though, I got a couple of things to make sure we're all on the same page with. First and foremost, we have no affiliation at all with Chevron, nor are we affiliated in any way with Fidelity. Our experience comes with the years and years of time we have spent with people who are in similar positions as yours and helping them transition into a successful retirement. And most of those folks work for Fortune 100 companies like Chevron. And we bring a lot of experience to the table in knowing about your pension plans and your 401k plans, et cetera. And we're going to talk a little bit about how some of that applies to you and give you some feedback on how we get a chance to help people. And this is one of the avenues that we do that, which is this webinar platform. But we also have other ways to educate you, and you'll find links into the chat to get access to some of the recordings that we've done in the past on topics that are very relevant and certainly not just correlated to your pension, but things about investments and taxes and withdrawals and things of that nature. So we encourage you to check that out at your own leisure. And we also have a link that's going to give you access to our ebooks library, which is a bunch of short to read, very common and specific questions that we get on topics that we know you'll find some use out of if you have the time to check those out. So we encourage you to do that. Last but not least, certainly one of the things you might find the most value of is spending a few minutes with us to educate us on what it is that's important to you from a retirement planning perspective. And what will come of that is a document that we refer to as a cash flow analysis. And this is a complimentary service that we offer as a way to introduce our services to you and to show you good faith of the education and things that we want to do to help put you in a position that you're comfortable transitioning into a successful retirement. And that way, if you choose to select a partner to work with in retirement, obviously, we'd like to apply as to the relevant facts for that. So last but not least, if you have questions about anything related to things that are important to you or the topics that we're talking about today, please feel free to drop those questions into the question and answer box, and we'll do our very best to get to those at the end of the workshop. So without further ado, what I'll do is bring on today's speaker and talk to you about what's happening. Tyson?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And thank you folks for attending our webinar series today. My name is Tyson Mavar, one of the Chevron-focused retirement advisors for the Retirement Group here in Texas. And what a wild year it has been so far. There's been quite a good appreciation in your stock if you still own any Chevron stock. So that's helped with some of the depreciation of the value of other stocks here in the United States and really all over the world. But what has also happened that has affected the retirement plan of many of our clients and many of the people that we have met with and talked to from Chevron is a substantial increase in interest rates that affect the lump sum payouts for the Chevron pension plan. And while the lump sum is not the only option and not always appropriate for everyone retiring from Chevron, it has been a very attractive option to many people that we've talked to over the past close to 30 years that we've been in business, and is still a relatively attractive option. So we're going to talk today about the implications of the interest rate changes, the interest rates that were actually announced today for the September month, which is a part of the lump sum calculation for anybody that's approaching retirement toward the end of the year, and some of the timing issues with electing your pension and rolling that pension over once you leave the company, assuming that you take the lump sum option on the pension. So Patrick mentioned a little bit about our company. We've been in business about 30 years. We've worked with Chevron employees as well as a handful of other companies' employees. As long as we've been in business, our focus at the Retirement Group has been helping people successfully transition out of their company and into comfortable retirement and producing cash flow from their investments. We actually manage investments through Charles Schwab, and we're an independent advisory firm, a fiduciary responsible for managing many clients' entire net worth in retirement. Not for everybody, but our hope is that we have an opportunity to get to know you and for you to get to know us, so we can educate you on how we might be a good fit for your retirement needs, and then also what the cost of our services are. But in addition to that, a whole host of complimentary services we hope that you take advantage of. And all we ask if you do that is that you help us grow our business by maybe recommending some of your coworkers at Chevron talk to us before they retire. So one way to keep informed about some of the changes happening with the benefits plans and relevant issues related to the retirement strategies for Chevron employees is through our LinkedIn page. There's a QR code here on this slide that if you can take a picture of, it'll get you a link to our LinkedIn page. I encourage you to follow us because that's where we publish these live webinars so that you can watch them at your own leisure, and specifically the ones that are most relevant to your situation or that you're most interested in. That's where you can keep up with the new content. One thing that's interesting about the Chevron plan, many of you may not have started your career with Chevron. Maybe it was Texaco or Gulf or Caltex, Unical, Getty even. We have some clients that moved to Texaco from Getty. Depending on where you started your career, this is going to define what benefits you qualify for. So which pension that you're on, what additional benefits that you may qualify for, how your age penalties are assessed when you leave the company and take your pension. So this is typically where we'll start our conversation and then drill down into what benefits you might qualify for and how that might change the optimal retirement strategy for you compared to some of your coworkers that might not have the same genesis with the company. Now, there's a variety of different distribution options. We've talked about the interest rates and how the lump sum is impacted by these rates, and I'm going to actually zoom in here a little bit. The lump sum is not the only option. You have a single life annuity, which is a monthly paycheck for you, the employee, or the retiree's life. Once you pass away, that money or income stops. There's a variety of other annuity options, the life and term certain, which is the single life annuity with some additional insurance that if you pass away in a certain period of time, there's a possibility of a death benefit to one or several beneficiaries. You have the joint survivor annuity, which is very popular for married couples, but doesn't have to necessarily be a spouse as your joint survivor. Essentially, it is a lifetime payment for two individuals rather than just one, as in the case of the single life annuity. And then the uniform income is an option that is similar to the single life annuity, but produces more income in the early years of retirement and less income in the later years of retirement as a function of your ability to collect Social Security. And for most people, we haven't seen this be a very popular option because most people did a decent job saving in the 401k plan, the ESIP. But if that was not you, if you did not have a good opportunity to save in the plan, this might be a good way to balance out or sort of flatten out the income that you have throughout retirement by creating more retirement income prior to the ability to collect Social Security. Everybody's different in terms of their goals, their values, their resources, their risk tolerance, and some of these things will help us as advisors start to whittle down the options that we feel might be most appropriate. And while the lump sum has been incredibly popular, many of our clients and people that we've talked to over the last 10 years, it may become less and less popular as interest rates go up, because as many of you know, when interest rates go up, the lump sum pension goes down. Now, there's a caveat or exception to that. If you started with the company after 2008, on or after 2008, you will likely be on the cash balance pension plan, which does not have the same relationship with interest rates. In fact, rising interest rates help the cash balance plan to grow faster over time. So higher interest rates are actually good for the cash balance plan, not the case with what we call the defined benefit plans, which is anybody hired prior to 2008. So just keep that in mind if you're somebody that hasn't been working with the company as long. And for new hires, the cash balance plan is now the only pension plan offered. But for many of the people that we've worked with over the years, the defined benefit produces a better lump sum and annuity payout than the cash balance plan. But there are some potential age penalties. So I'm going to zoom in on this slide, which I find to be very helpful to review with folks as they are starting to narrow down what's going to be their retirement date, as well as what's going to be the date that they commence their pension benefit. And those dates do not have to be the same. In many cases, we've actually recommended our clients wait to take their pension beyond their retirement date with the company. Here's one of the reasons why. And we'll just go on this chart. What we see going down the left-hand column is the age at annuity start date. Keep in mind, even if you take the lump sum from Chevron on your pension, they call your benefit commencement date the annuity start date, even if you don't take the annuity option. So what these rows are associated with is the age that you take your benefit. At the top here, and you can see these columns are associated with the age and service, also known as points, when you left the company. Okay, so this is associated with your retirement, whereas the rows are associated with when you take your pension. Now, most people will fall on the far right column that have greater than 55 points of age and service. So you might be 45 years old with at least 10 years of service. You could be 55 years old, 50 years old with 5 years of service. And you will fall in this right-hand column. That's most people. Now, what is less consistent is when people start their benefits. So let's say you're only 50 years old, but you have at least 55 points. You'd be in the far right corner of this table, only walking away with 50% of your pension. That same person, they had 55 points at least when they retired. They could wait to take their pension 10 years and walk away with 100% of their pension. So that's a pretty decent growth rate. Think of it as about as close as you can get to a guarantee, at least by the full faith and credit of Chevron, growth rate on your money, both lump sum and annuity options. Now, one potential exception to that is what are interest rates doing during that time that I'm waiting to take my pension? And if interest rates are going up, it's very possible your lump sum would be going down, maybe even at a faster rate than your lump sum is going up because of the fact that you're aging out of age penalties. So we have to pay close attention to the interest rates and also to the risk tolerance of the individual that is deferring the election of their pension beyond their retirement date. Now, if you were to leave at 60 years old and certainly have all 55 points, of course, you walk away with 100% of your pension. And in many cases, it wouldn't make sense to leave your pension with the company or defer the election of your pension beyond age 60. The only consideration we might have for that is if interest rates are going down and we see our lump sum going up, we might consider waiting and taking the lump sum at the optimal time related to what the interest rates are doing. I actually had one client, I think it was about 5 years ago. She was already 60 and we waited, I think it was 5 or 6 months to commence her pension. And fortunately, the company gives you a bit of a crystal ball on what's happening to interest rates because of the look back period on the interest rates as far as the benefit commencement date goes. So I'm going to zoom into what I think is the most important slide today, which is what's happening to the Chevron interest rates and explain how these rates work as far as the timing of your election, as well as the corporate bond interest rates and the timing of the release of those. So at the top of this, we have the most previously available interest rates that have been published, September, August, and July. So here we are, October 19th, and just this morning, these rates were published for September. So they don't publish them very quickly, unfortunately. The IRS publishes these usually 3, sometimes up to 4 weeks after the end of the month. But we just got September's interest rates published this morning, and look how much higher they are than August. The second segment rate, I want you all to remember, is the most relevant of these 3 segment rates because it carries the most weight in the lump sum calculation. Just for reference, it's 3 times more relevant than the first segment rate, for instance. So the rates are up 64 basis points, 0.64% in 1 month. I looked back earlier before we started this webinar recording, and I only looked back 10 years, and there hasn't been 1 month in the last 10 years where rates have jumped this high. There was a couple months earlier this year that the rates jumped 40 or 50 basis points, but it's been more than 10 years. And it hasn't even been since I've been working with this company, the retirement group, that rates have jumped this much in 1 month. So part of this is a result of inflation being higher than it's been in 40 years. Rates have gone up this year quite a bit. But let's talk about the significance of these rates and the timing of your pension. What the company does is they take The third, fourth, and fifth month prior to your commencement date, your annuity start date, as they call it officially, and they create a blended monthly rate. So you can see below there's the December 2022 blended rates. That's the average of the September, August, and July interest rates, also known as the third, fourth, and fifth month prior to your commencement month. Now, fortunately, we are not in December yet. We are still in October. So we have about a 6-week crystal ball where we know what rates are doing and can make a decision on whether or not we want to retire and or commence our benefit based on what these interest rates are going to do to our lump sum. So you can see December 2022, if we compare those to November 2022, all three rates are higher. The second segment rate is 15 basis points higher, 0.15%. And what that translates to in English is probably about a 1.5% drop on your lump sum. This is a function of both your age, or specifically your life expectancy, because the younger you are, the more significant an impact these rates will have on your lump sum. And it's also a function of these three rates, and the three rates affect your lump sum at varying degrees. Fortunately, there is a modeler on the pension website you can get access to through the Fidelity website and model different interest rate changes, what those will do to your lump sum, to really start to narrow down what a 1% interest rate change, what the impact that will have is on your lump sum. We've also shown here, if you go look at the bottom of this table, January of this year compared to December of this year, the change in interest rates was pretty substantial. It was 2.25%, 2.25% increase in interest rates in less than 1 year's time. That probably translates into about a 22.5% drop in your lump sum in less than a year's time. So while if you're still working at the company, you would have already seen this change in your lump sum value. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you could do about that. But we stress this so much at the retirement group because this could make or break your retirement by not understanding the interest rate impact on your lump sum and essentially working for free in some cases. There's probably some of you on today's call, certainly some of our clients, that had they not retired, they would have worked for free for this year. Now, there's no guarantees that interest rates won't go back down. We don't think it's that likely that they'll go back down to pandemic levels because this was an unprecedentedly low interest rate environment. And because now we're on an unprecedentedly high inflationary environment, it's unlikely we'll see this at least until we can get inflation numbers back to the reasonable goals that our Federal Reserve is aiming for, which is the 2 to 3% range. But we're still in the near 8% range on the year-over-year inflation numbers. My point is that we want to pay very close attention to this because it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars more or less in your retirement plan, depending on how you structure your retirement plan, the timing of your retirement. And you may have planned on working at Chevron your entire career, but we've had several of our clients leave the company this year and just go work somewhere else and take, in some cases, a pretty substantial pay cut, but still have a more successful or a higher probability of success in their retirement plan, even though they're working somewhere else that's paying them less, because they've saved a substantial amount of money on their lump sum. And also, something that a lot of people forget to think about is the ability to invest that money is pretty valuable. What we call the opportunity cost of staying at the company is the lack of opportunity that you could earn in terms of interest on that money. So in other words, by retiring earlier, not only may you avoid losing money on your lump sum, you may also be able to earn some interest on that money. And while this year hasn't been a great year for stocks or bonds, over time, as long as we know that that money is earmarked for the long run and we have time on our side, we could probably earn a reasonable rate of interest on that needs to also be evaluated in this overall evaluation of when's the best time to leave Chevron to maximize my net worth and maximize my probability of success in retirement plan. And success has a different definition for most people, but most people that we talk to, success is defined as not outliving their retirement assets or not running out of money in their retirement plan. First and foremost, that is most people's primary goal. And then there might be some secondary goals such as building a legacy, building an estate, but ultimately just making sure that we don't outlive our money is our hope and our goal for all of our clients that work with us at the retirement group who leave Chevron. This is one way that we can improve that probability, is by maximizing the money that you walk away with, and then also minimizing the taxes that you pay on those assets. Unfortunately, statistically, 74% of Americans over the age of 50 do not have a written plan for their retirement. This is absolutely unacceptable, folks. There's no reason that you shouldn't have this, given that this is a free service offered to you by a variety of different companies, our company included in this. The cost to you, of course, is some of your time, and we know it's not always the most exciting investment of your time, but we are very confident you will find it to be a valuable investment of your time. If you're willing to spend a few minutes with us to run some numbers, start to whittle down what is likely going to be the best decision for you in terms of the timing of your retirement, the pension option that you take, the tax and distribution strategy to put the cash flow together once the paychecks stop at Chevron, and then some other different strategies that we'd look at, such as net unrealized appreciation, Social Security strategies, and potentially estate planning strategies, if that's something that is important to you in your retirement plan. So please spend some time with us. The way to do that is email us at the home office at info@theretirementgroup.com to request a meeting, or just ask some specific questions if you have any. You can call us at 800-900-5867. You can take a picture of this QR code to get on one of our Chevron focused retirement advisors calendars. And then just, if you are not ready to talk yet, but just want to keep up to speed with some of the different retirement strategies for Chevron employees, strongly encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with what's happening with the benefits plans, as well as various tax implications and tax rule changes that might affect your retirement plan. For that, we're going to wrap up the presentation. Although if we do have some questions, Patrick, I'll let you open it up for any questions that might be on today's call, or any housekeeping issues that you might have thought of before we wrap it up for the week.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of information that you had covered, and we do have some questions. So let's get right into them. A lot of these are interest rate related and kind of how it affects, or at least some of them anyway. So here's the first one. At what rate are the interest rates increasing, and how much will my lump sum change between this month and next month?
Really good question. We mentioned that the September rates were about 64 basis points higher than the August interest rates. However, each month only accounts for 1/3 of the blended rates calculation. So that 64 basis point jump, if rates were to stay flat for the next 2 months, would probably be about a 6 to 7% drop in your lump sum. So $1 million might be worth $60,000 or $70,000 less in 3 months if rates stay flat. Just this 1 month is probably only 1/3 of that, so maybe only a 2% reduction in your lump sum, give or take, of course, depending on your age. If you retire in December and commence your benefit in December compared to November. You can see there's a lot of moving parts here. To commence your benefit in December, you have to be off payroll by the end of November, and also have to have an election in that you are taking the lump sum and where you want the company to send that, whether it be your ESIP plan or an IRA, whether at Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, any number of custodians that you might send that money to. So we have some time for this. For those of you that are close to retirement, might not be a bad time to rerun your numbers, compare the November commencement date to the December commencement date, which means you have to retire by the end of October to lock in a November 1st commencement date and avoid these potential losses to your lump sum that resulted from higher interest rates in the month of September compared to August. I know that was a mouthful. My best advice, just call us and we can help you run some numbers, look at the implications of different retirement dates, and truly see how much money in dollars you stand to lose because of these rising interest rates and the effect they have on your pension.
Yeah, and I'll add to this, as to a lot of the people that we have spoke to this year, for sure, these changes are sudden, right? If you've been accustomed to just driving the car straight down the highway, thinking in terms of you've got 2 or 3 or 4 years or something to, before it's your technical time to retire, before you wish or choose to retire, all we're considering is from a planning aspect, it may take some time, but certainly it might be of what's in your best interest to understand if you were to transition off the payroll, if one of your most important priorities is to maximize the pool of capital that you have in all aspects, your pension, your 401k, your outside investments, et cetera. And unfortunately, that means you might have to take a right turn when you've been trying to drive straight. So what we've seen is many people are kind of caught off guard by this, but if you have the time, which fortunately at Chevron, one of the beauties of the way the interest rate environment works is you've got an effective crystal ball, as you had mentioned, Tyson, for a few weeks of window of time to basically do some planning if you hadn't already done so to try to address this. And so I think the end result is the stress of planning is the most important thing. And the more time you do it and are interested in spending some time with us, we'd be willing to do that. Here's a good question, Tyson. How does Social Security affect my pension?
Really good question. So we didn't go through the full formula. It's a little bit different for each plan. But if you're on one of the defined benefit plans, so Heritage Chevron, Heritage Gulf, Heritage Texaco, Heritage Unical, you're going to have an element of your pension formula called a Social Security offset. This is where the company is going to reduce the default payment option, which is an annuity on your pension, by a certain amount that's a function of your projected Social Security benefit. So it's up to about half of your projected Social Security benefit. So for instance, if you are projected to get, let's say it's $3,000 a month at your full retirement age for Social Security. And in fact, it's actually based on age 65 projected Social Security benefit, which everybody today, their full retirement age is actually past age 65. So there's a little bit of a conversion you have to do to convert your full retirement age amount back to an age 65 projected amount. They're going to remove that from your annuity value. So if you're projected to get $6,000 at a monthly annuity and your age 65 primary insurance amount, as they call it in your pension projection, your PIA is, let's say, $3,000. They might knock off close to half of that, or $1,500 off of your annuity amount. So rather than getting $5,000 a month, you'd only get $3,500 a month. That also translates into a lower lump sum as a result of this Social Security offset. Now, interestingly enough, this is really important for most people to know. The company does not always get this projection on your Social Security benefit correct. Sometimes they get it wrong in your favor, and sometimes they get it wrong in the company's favor, meaning that they're giving you less money than you're entitled to based on what your actual projected Social Security amount is. The company doesn't actually have communication with Social Security Administration to get these numbers right. And even if you worked your entire career there, and they probably could get this correct, they use a government prescribed formula to back test your earnings. And the point is they get this wrong sometimes, but the good news is if you do the evaluation and find out that they are wrong and it's not in your favor, they're actually giving you a lower lump sum or a lower annuity, and you correctly identify this and prove it to the company by sending in your Social Security statement, you can increase your pension benefit. I have one client that increased his pension benefit over $36,000 on his lump sum by turning in a statement, which is real money. That, could maybe not today buy you a new car, but a few years ago it could buy you a new car. So it's real money, and we're delighted to help you with this evaluation. It just takes looking at your pension projection and what they call the age 65 PIA amount and comparing that to your Social Security statement and converting your full retirement age Social Security benefit amount back to an age 65 value. If we figure out that they're giving you too much money, we're probably not going to recommend you telling them about it because they will also change it that to reduce your pension benefit. But if we find out by turning in your statement you can get some more money, we will make that recommendation to you. And like I said, it might be 10, 20, 30, maybe $40,000 more in your lump sum, or even just an extra $100 a month for the rest of your life also adds up. So let us know if you think that might be you, or if you're willing to spend some time, and we'll show you how to do that evaluation.
Here's a really good question that we've gotten what seems to be more frequently this year because of what the economic conditions like in general are doing. Yeah. But the question is, how safe is my pension And if I take the annuity from Chevron, is it better to take the lump sum and buy my own annuity?
Possibly. That's a multifaceted question. So, first, how safe is the annuity? The annuity is as safe as Chevron's ability to pay it in the future, but it's also insured to some degree, at least, by the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, PBGC. We have seen many companies have issues with paying their pension liabilities in the automotive industry, the airline industry. Sears Roebuck was one, not that far out. I think it was maybe 4 years ago, that defaulted on their pension liabilities. And essentially it's a bankruptcy filing for that to happen. Now, if you are an annuitant, a retiree with a pension annuity, you'll likely still have a pension benefit because of the insurance through PBGC, but you'll also likely have a reduction in your pension amount if Chevron was to unfortunately go out of business sometime during your retirement, maybe 30 years down the road. So I have seen that be a reason people, especially when the oil and gas industry was having some challenges in the last couple of years, have a concern for taking their pension as an annuity. Now, if you were to take the lump sum and go out and purchase your own annuity through an insurance company or maybe multiple insurance companies, in almost every case, you're going to have a slightly reduced payout compared to what Chevron would pay you. However, there's hundreds of different types of these annuities that have different types of features and benefits, some that have cash value. So if you change your mind and don't need the money, maybe you suffer a terminal illness and don't care about a lifetime stream of payments, you just want as much money now. Or if you suffer an untimely death, they have a death benefit for children or non-spouse beneficiaries. So there's a whole host of other reasons you may consider taking the lump sum, for instance, and maybe using some of that money to purchase your own annuity. We talk to our clients about the merits of considering that. But it's not an easy apples to apples comparison, because it's not just typically about maximizing your current income today. There might be some other reasons you would consider taking an annuity other than the Chevron pension. And one that I've had people, especially recently, considering is taking the lump sum but deferring the decision to annuitize that money. In other words, waiting until a higher interest rate environment, which would produce higher annuity payouts from the insurance companies, even if buying that annuity today from the insurance company produced a lower payout because we're still in a low interest rate environment. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables with that question. We have to get to know you before we can understand what values you have and what might be a good way to go. But these are a lot of the questions that we get from our clients and people that we talk to, which is one of the biggest decisions that you'll make when you leave the company, is when to take that pension and how to take that pension, which payout option to elect. And it is a lifetime decision, an irrevocable one that you probably want to spend a few minutes on.
So here's a really good question that has just come up. So let's talk about this before we call it an afternoon for sure. What considerations go into picking a distribution date for Chevron Retirement Restoration Plan? It is not an option until after retirement, but it's hard to know what the value might look like. This is a taxable amount, so as amount is an important factor.
Yeah, good question. So not everybody qualifies for this. You have to be a certain pay grade to qualify for what is effectively a deferred compensation plan. It's called the RRP, or Retirement Restoration Plan in Chevron's case. And once you make an election on this, it's going to be a schedule at which this is paid out in your retirement. The biggest factor in my eyes as a financial advisor with this schedule, the distribution of this restoration plan, is taxes, right? So, certainly the quicker you get the money, the better in terms of being able to earn interest on this. But that might not necessarily be the best way to go from a tax perspective, because the more income you get in any given tax year, the higher your tax rate goes. As we know in our progressive tax system here in the U.S. that we love and have gotten used to over the past, in our entire lives. So it's not an easy decision, but if we can look at, and this is why we run a cash flow analysis, one of the many reasons, if we can look at what we expect your total income to be and have some kind of a guesstimate at what that retirement restoration plan is going to be, we can choose a better payout schedule, first and foremost from a tax perspective, but also from a present value of money perspective. The sooner we get money, typically the more valuable it's going to be, assuming that we can earn interest on that money. So I guess my answer is it's not an easy question to answer until we know more about the individual's case. And I strongly encourage whoever asked that question to call us. And if we haven't done so yet, have us run your cash flow analysis on a complimentary basis, and we can start to identify what might be the best route to take on that RRP.
Yeah, I would also add, if this person hasn't already done so, I would encourage them to watch our the presentation that we do on how to effectively have a tax efficient withdrawal strategy, which would help them encompass not just, you know, normal income from qualified sources like pensions and 401ks, et cetera, also to take into consideration Social Security. And then, of course, if you have deferred comp type disbursements, this is all part of the factor. So certainly something that might benefit this individual in the event that they're more interested in learning details. And like Tyson had mentioned, you're welcome to reach out to us at 800-900-5867. So we appreciate your attention this afternoon, folks. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. As I mentioned earlier, I hope you found some value in spending that time with us, and we encourage you to check back with us as we do this on a weekly basis. And so with that, we'll let you go for the afternoon. We appreciate your attention. We hope you have a great day. Everyone stay safe.